Thank you very much to welcome you to Maison African Motives. We are going to talk about Business Studies Grade 10. We are going to be on Business Studies Grade 10, Chapter 4 of it. We are still on Term 1 notes. So, without wasting much time, let's quickly go to the business of today, as we are going to talk about the macro environment. We're going to talk about macro environment and interrelationship between business environments. That is what we'll be focusing on in today's presentation. So let us be together from the start of this presentation to the end of it. So without wasting much time, let's quickly go to the meaning of the macro environment as well as external environment, macro environment or external environment. So here we are on our macro environment, meaning, so this is macro environment or external environment, the meaning of macro environment or external environment. So as it says, the macro environment includes all forces or events and circumstances that affect the business and its market environment. Meaning to say, we are saying these are big outside factors. These are big outside factors. These are big outside factors that impact the business, that impact the business. That's when you're talking about what? Macro environment. These are big outside factors. So it means when you talk of macro environment, we are talking about they are indirectly outside the business. They are indirectly outside the business. So that is that. Unlike a market environment, you know very well that market environment, yeah, is external, but it's directly outside the business. So, for example, a rise in fuel prices affects the delivery costs. So you know very well that you cannot control the macro environment. You've got no control. It further on says this is the environment that is located outside the business. That is located outside the business. So these factors come from outside business operations. They come from outside business operation. That is that. So, for example, government laws come from outside the business. That is why we're saying this is the environment that is located outside the business. The business cannot control this environment, but it can influence it. Like I've said, they have no control. So business can't change these factors. That's what you're saying. Business can't change these factors, but they can adjust or respond. That's what they can do. For example, the business cannot change inflation, but can adjust the prices. That's why we are saying they cannot control this environment, but all what they can do is to influence. Hope we are still on one page. It is also known as the external environment, the macro environment. It is also known as the external environment. Like I've said, that they are outside, the factors are outside the business. They are outside the business. They are found outside the business, indirectly outside the business. So that's why we're saying it is known as a external environment. So that is that. The micro environment is always developing and changing. The micro environment is always developing and changing. So these outside factors change often. They change often. For example, new technology appears frequently. That is why I'm saying they develop and change frequently. So the macro environment, the business have no control over this environment as it poses challenges to business. So it means problems from outside affect the business and cannot be prevented. Cannot be prevented. For example, a drought increases food prices. If we have a drought or we are in the world of drought, it means the prices for food are going to increase. So you've got no control. And it's going to impose challenge because now the price are going to rise. So that is that. Hope we are still on one page. Let us move on to the features of the macro environment. Features of the macro environment. The first one is physical or natural environment. So when we talk of physical or natural environment, we are talking of what natural resources, climate, pollution, and etc. For example, we can talk of water shortages that affect farms. Water, those are the natural environment. Economic environment. So with economic environment, that's when you're talking about interest rates, inflation. That's when you're talking about the interest rates. That's when you're talking about increase loan payments, increase loan payments. So these are what, that's when you're talking about what economic environment. For example, high interest rates increase loan payments. So if the interest rates are high, it means this is going to increase the loan payments. So that is that. Social, cultural, and demographic environment. So this is when we're talking about people's beliefs. This one is when we're talking about people's beliefs. That's when we're talking about people's beliefs. That's when we're talking about values, lifestyle, age. You can talk of education, you can talk of income as well. So that's when you're talking about social, cultural, and democratic environment. For example, an aging population increases demand for healthcare. You know, people are now they are old now. That is when now they get sick. Often they get sick. So this will increase demand for healthcare. So that is that. Technological environment. Technological environment. So here we are talking about the new inventions, talk of ICT, talk of automation. So the example that we can give under technological environment that is the online shopping reduces in-store sales. So you see that is a technological change now when people are now shopping online. So that reduces or that affects the in-store sales. So that is that. Legal environment and political environment. So you are talking about laws now, government policies, court systems. So, for example, labor laws regulate working hours. That is that. International or global environment. With international and global environment, that's when you're talking about global trade, international competition, foreign cultures. For example, important products compete with the local ones. So that is that. Institutional environment. So institutional environment, you're talking about government departments, national, provincial, local. So you can make an example and say local government provides services like what, like waste removal. You see, so that is that. So now let us move on to the reasons why microenvironment can be a challenge to a business. reasons why microenvironment can be a challenge to a business. So it says the microenvironment is always developing and changing. So it changes all the time. It changes all the time. It changes all the time. Changes all the time, making planning difficult. Making planning difficult. Changes all the time, making planning difficult. For example, new tax laws may suddenly increase costs. That's what you're saying. That is one of the reasons why micro environment can be a challenge to a business. It is always developing and changing. Management in a business have no control over the micro environment. So it means managers cannot influence what? Um, Outside factors. You're saying managers cannot influence outside factors. Influence outside factors. So, for example, managers cannot stop inflation. They can't stop inflation. That is that. So let us move on, good people. So now we are under the description of the features of the macroenvironment, challenges, strategies to deal with each feature of the macro environment. This is where we are. So we have features, you have description, you have challenges, as well as the strategies that you're going to deal with the challenges of each feature of the macro environment. The first feature is the physical or natural environment. The first feature is what? Physical or natural environment. As it says under the description of this, it says, these are forces that present the natural environment, such as natural resources, pollution, increased cost of energy and infrastructure. So what it means is that business depend on nature. No way business depend on nature and infrastructure. For example, factories need electricity as well as what? Water. So that is that. It also is a business that use raw materials to transform them into useful products such as coffee, electricity, need nature for their survival. They need what? Nature for their survival. So it means nature provides inputs like plants, minerals, water. That is that. For example, clothing companies need cotton. That is what we are saying. This needs what? Nature for their survival. So that is that. So now let us come to the challenges to business of this feature, physical natural environment, after we have just given its description. It says the physical location of business has a large effect on a business, on the success of the business. Here we're talking about what? Location that affects success. We are saying location can affect the success. For example, a bad location reduces customers. So if your business is poorly located, it means now it's going to reduce customers. You're not going to make more sales. That is that. Manufacturing business dump their waste materials that impact negatively on the physical environment. Here we're talking about what? The manufacturers dump waste that harms the environment. The manufacturers dump waste that harms the environment. So it means that pollution causes environmental problems. Can make an example of chemical waste that pollutes what? Rivers. So that is the challenge that comes up with what? Physical or natural environment. That the manufacturing business dump their waste materials that are going to negatively on the physical environment, that are going to impact negatively on the physical environment. Also, it says the awareness of pollution and environmental damage provide new challenges for business. So here we're talking about the awareness of pollution that creates challenges. So you find consumers expect what? Eco-friendly practices. They expect eco-friendly practices. So for example, customers avoid companies that pollute. So customers, they don't buy or make business with the organization that pollutes the environment. So that is why they're saying the awareness of pollution and environmental damage provide new challenge for business. So if ever your business now is not respecting the environment, it means it is as well going to lose customers because consumers expect eco-friendly practices. That's the challenge that is going to come to a business which do not respect the environment, which pollutes the environment. Some natural resources are scarce and expensive. Example, source of energy are expensive. So we are saying some natural resources are scarce and expensive. It means raw materials like fuel cost more. Raw materials like fuel cost more. For example, a high electricity cost increase production expenses. That is another challenge that is going to come. As we are saying, some natural resources are scarce, They are not easily found. And you'll find that they are as well expensive. So that is a challenge. That is a challenge. Like I've talked about raw materials like fuel costs. Raw materials like fuel cost more. That is a challenge because they are very expensive. It costs more. The scarcity of natural resources has a negative impact on the production cost and results in higher prices of goods and services. We are talking about some natural resources are scarce, or we've talked about that. We've talked about that one. So that is that the scarcity of natural resources, them being scarce, has a negative impact of the production cost and results in higher prices of goods and services. So prices of goods become high because of the scarcity of natural resources. So now let us come to the strategies to deal with challenges of each feature of the macro environment. So here we are talking about the strategies to deal with natural environment. As it says, business need to operate closer to their target market. So it means choose a location near customers to reduce cost. That is a strategy. Nearness to your customers so as to reduce the cost. It's very important. Business must ensure that their waste materials does not pollute the environment. Because you have said, if ever you pollute the environment, customers want to do with the business that are eco-friendly. So make sure that as a business, you ensure that the waste material does not pollute the environment. So proper waste management. Proper waste management. Use recycling bins. That is that. Business should take care of the physical environment and resources in a responsible way through recycling, like I've said. So that is that take care of environment through recycling. Reuse materials to reduce waste. Use alternative energy resources such as solar energy, wind power, as well as raw material. So that is that. Switch to renewable energy. We can, for example, install solar panels. That is that. So now let us move on to economic environment. Let us move on to economic environment. Now we come to the description of this feature. As it says, economic environment includes all those factors that affect the financial matters. We can talk of interest rates, inflation, or business cycle. So This affect money and financial decisions. This affect what? Money and financial decisions. For example, inflation raises product prices. That is that. Interest rates are the charges people and business pay for the cost of borrowing money. So here we're talking about interest rates cost is equal to cost of borrowing money. So business pay more or less for loans depending on the interest. Example, a loan repayment increases when the interest goes up. So that is that. Inflation refers to the general increase in the price of goods and services in the economy. So here we're talking about the goods and services become more expensive. The goods and expenses, that's when we're talking about inflation. That's when the bread prices increases. That is that. Now we come to the challenges. We come to the challenges of this future economic environment. As they are saying, economic changes affect business. If the rent becomes weaker, business are more likely to be able to export a product successfully. So that is that. That is the challenge. Weak rent helps exports. That is in short what it says. Weak rent helps export. So foreign buyers find SA products cheaper. Foreign buyers they're going to find because of the weaker rent, they're going to find them cheaper. That is that. Also, it says that if the interest rates increases, it means the business will pay more monthly installments to the bank for the loan taken. Higher interest rates increase loan cost. That is in short what it says. Higher interest rates increase loan cost. Business pay more to banks now. Business pay more to banks. We're talking of higher monthly installments now. A high inflation will mean that consumers will have less money to spend on goods or services. So meaning to say, we are saying high inflation reduces consumer spending. So people are going to buy less. Less demand for luxury goods because of what? High inflation. If your tax goes up, business will be charged more on their profit, and people will have less money to spend on buying goods and services. So that is that. When you're talking about the tax that is going up, if the tax goes up, business will be charged more. So it means they're going to be charged more on their profits. Bigger portion of their profits now, they're going to part ways with it. So it means people have less money to spend on buying goods and services. So it further on says, if exchange rates influences trade, international trade, as it becomes expensive to buy raw materials and machinery from overseas. Here we're talking about exchange rates that are going to affect the imports. Exchange rates that are going to affect the imports. So buying goods from overseas are now going to become expensive. So it means now imported machinery, if we are to import machines, are now going to cost more. That is what it means. So now let us come to the strategies to deal with the challenge of economic environment. Now we are on the strategy. Business should produce proudly South African products in order to reduce dependency on foreign products. So it means what we are saying here is that produce local products. Produce local products. That is what it means. Reduce depending on imports. Reduce on depending on imports. So make local clothing instead of importing them from abroad. Borrow money from the bank when the rates interest are low, when the interest rates are favorable. That's what it means. You borrow money when the interest rates are favorable or when they are low. So that is when you go for cheaper loans. Business should reduce the profit margin instead of increasing selling prices of goods and service. Reduce profit margin instead of increasing prices. And keep customers by not increasing prices too much. That is what it means. You are to keep your customers by not increasing prices too much. Lower markup during inflation. Business have to take note of the economic factors that affect consumer spending patterns. So monitor of economic factors. Study patterns to make decisions. So that is what it means. So let us move on, good people. Now we come to the social factor. Come to the social factor or demographic environment as our feature. And then we are to give a description of it. Social, cultural, democratic environment. As it is, the social environment involves people. It involves people. Social environment involves people, meaning to say people's behavior affects what? Business. That is that. People's behavior affects the business. For example, a trendy fashion changes buying habits. You see? Then it further on says the cultural and social environment can be defined as the sum of total of the languages, values, and cultural norms, preferences, and religions and beliefs. So we are talking about the culture includes values, beliefs, and religion. So the cultural differences influences preferences. The cultural differences influences the preferences. For example, the halal food for certain religions. You see, that is that. The demographic environment refers to the composition of countries' inhabitants. Example, their age, residential areas, skills levels, income level, and etc. Here we're talking about demographics is equal to age, income, and education. So that is when we're going to talk about population characteristics. That's when we talk about population characteristics. For example, young population increases demand for gadgets. You see, that is that. So now let us come to the challenges that come up with this feature, social, cultural, and demographic environment. As they are saying, uh, social issues such as poverty, HIV and AIDS, unemployment, low levels of literacy, and crime can affect consumer spending, the productivity of the employees, and the profitability of the business. So we are saying those issues like poverty, HIV, crime affect productivity and spending as well. So it means we are talking about social problems reduces business performance. These problems that you've talked about, HIV, unemployment, they reduce business performance. That is what simple it means. Social and cultural diversity have potential to create conflict in the workplace. Here now we are talking about the diversity may cause conflict. The diversity may cause conflict. Different cultures may disagree. So it means the misunderstanding between, there's going to be misunderstanding between employees. That's how it means. Employees from different cultural backgrounds may have different cultural norms, preferences, and beliefs. So that is that. So also South Africa has a large number of people who are poorly educated and skilled. This means the business may have few customers. Because of lack of skills, lack of skills going to reduce what the customer base. So poorly educated people may earn less. So you see. So now let us come to the strategies now of social, cultural, and demographic environment. Business should align the marketing and advertising campaigns to social behavior and trends of its society. For example, change in gender, age, ratios, and family structure. So here we're talking about align marketing with social trends. So you advertise according to the trends. That's what it means. You advertise according to the trends. For example, you focus adverts of young markets. The marketing campaigns need to be sensitive to different religions. So be sensitive to religions. Be sensitive to religions. Meaning to say, respect beliefs. Respect beliefs. Have to avoid adverts that offend religions. Business must be aware of the trends and changes in a social environment. Be aware of social changes. Understand changing lifestyles. That is that. Habits and values change over time, and business must be aware of these trends and satisfy its target market. And satisfy its target market. Business should be able to deal effectively with diversity in the workplace, manage diversity effectively, embrace cultural differences. Business must offer leadership programs and entrepreneurship skills or programs. So you offer training program for so that the skills can be improved. So let us move on to technological environment now. Technological environment. Now we are to explain it. These are factors that include development of new technology products and services. So we are talking about new technological products and services. So tech changes how business operate. Tech changes how business operate. That is that. You can talk of mobile apps for banking. So the rise of information technology such as computers and communication technology allows for rapid flow of large amounts of digital information. So you're talking about the ICT improves communication. You can talk of emails that allow instant messaging. So that is that. So now we come to the challenges that are imposed by this future technological environment. Many business may not be able to succeed without internet connectivity. That is that. Business need internet to succeed. So many services require online access. So that is that. The availability of online shopping decreased the demand for some products from the conventional street stores and service business. So the online shopping reduces in-store sales. So that is what we've already talked about. The online shopping reduces what? The in-store sales. The in-store sales are now going to be affected. So e-commerce compete with physical shops, you see? So it means fewer customers in malls. You're going to see fewer customers in malls. The IT system can be hacked by fraudsters. The fraudsters can hack it. So the IT system, it can be hacked. So there will be a cyber crime that affects businesses. So that is that. Let us move on the strategies now. Let us move on the strategies of technological environment. Business should be aware of new technology that their competitors are developing and using. So keep up with new technology. Update system to stay competitive. Meaning you have to use what? Modern software. They need to be competent in information technology and keep up to date with new trends. So here you have to keep up with new technology, update system to stay competitive. That is that. Business should be aware of new developments and be willing to implement new technology. That is that. Implement new tech. Adopt innovations. For example, using automated machines. They should ensure that the IT information technology system are secure. from computer fraud or hackers. Secure IT system, protect data, using strong passwords. So that is that. Let us move on. Now we come to legal environment. We are now on legal environment and political environment. So with legal environment, you are going to go straight to the description. The legal component of the microenvironment consists of legislation that has been passed. So it means that government sets rules business must follow. For example, you can talk of labor laws. Also, it says the government play a large role in development of policies and legal frameworks. So government develop framework. So they come up with policies that are going to guide industries. For example, tax rules. The legal system through the courts has power to oversee employment or tax trademark rights and patent rights, intellectual property. So it means now courts oversee legal matters, protect the rights of business and customers. That is that. Government employ large number of consumers. So we are saying government employs many consumers. So it means salaries influence spending in the market. So now we come to the challenges. Now we come to the challenges of legal environment and political environment. Unstable government or poor relationship between the government and business creates negative political environment. So meaning to say political instability scares investors. You know very well that investors will not want to invest in the country where there is a political instability. So that is that. Some political decisions such as government levies tax, interest rates, and inflation influence business. That is that. When you're talking about the political decisions that affect the business, government choices impact costs. For example, increase in the VAT or as well. Changes in government salaries can have an impact on the spending patterns of consumer. You're talking about salary changes influence spending. So if salaries drop, people buy less. That is that. Business are affected by legislation such as National Credit Act, Consumer Protection Act, Employment Equity Act, Basic Conditions of Employment Act. So business are affected by legislation. In short, we are saying these are the legislation. These acts are the legislation. They are laws. So business are affected by legislation. So they are to comply with these laws. Business must comply with laws. So now we are coming to the strategies. A good relationship between stable government and business creates positive political environment. So this helps business operate smoothly. Business that are affected by government policies should influence the government through lobbying. So here we're saying influence government through lobbying. It means you are to advocate for favorable policies. For example, asking for lower taxes. Business must comply with the recent legislation that affects their operations. Comply with legislation. Follow laws to avoid penalties. Meaning to say, pay correct tax. Now we come to international or global environment. Then the description is that globalization refers to an increase in trade and investment between countries. So countries do business together. That is what it means. Countries do business together. So now we come to the challenges now. Globalization results in increased competition from business around the world, which sell their goods to South Africa. Meaning to say, increased competition. Foreign products compete with local ones. So that is that. Business are expected to understand the culture of Foreign people. Foreign people. Yes, a business are expected to understand the cultures of foreign people. So we are trying to say need to understand foreign cultures. Cultural knowledge helps in global trade. Cultural knowledge helps in global trade. That is that. So now we are on the strategies now. Business should produce goods to export so that they can increase their foreign income. Produce goods for export. So sell international. For example, exporting South African wine. Business have to learn foreign cultures and language. So learn foreign cultures and languages helps with global customers. So for example, learning French for French markets. That is that. So now we come to institutional environment. This refers to the three spheres of government, e.g., local, provincial, as well as national government. So it means that we are saying each plays a role in services and policies. These three spheres that we've just talked about. For example, local government collect waste. That is that. So challenges is that the provincial government has an indirect impact on business through its role in providing services such as health, housing, and education. So that is what the challenge. Education, health, housing, quality impact what business. For example, poor education is equal to fewer skilled workers. That's what it means. Now we come to strategies now. Business need to form partnership with government by financing some of government projects and programs. So meaning business should partner with government. This will help with development projects, sponsoring school programs like that. So let us move on. Now we come to inter relationships of micro market and macro environments. On interrelationships of macro market and macro environment. So it says business needs managers to develop their vision, mission, and objectives. So we are saying business need managers to develop their vision and mission and the objectives. It means that managers guide the business by setting goals and direction. For example, manager decides the company's mission is affordable, clean energy. So that is a mission of that. That is decided by the manager of the company. Then the business vision and goals will also influence the business culture and its organizational structure. So we're saying the business vision and goals will influence the business structure. That is how the business is organized. Depends on what it plans to achieve. For example, a business wanting fast delivery creates a logistic department. So that is that. Also, it says the financial function must ensure that sufficient funds are available to finance other business functions. So this means money is needed to other departments can work properly. Money is needed so that other departments can work properly. For example, finance departments provides funds for buying raw materials. Hope we are together. Also, it further on says the marketing function must identify customers' needs, advise production function on products that need to be produced. Meaning to say, the marketing finds out what customers want and informs production. For example, surveys show customers want sugar-free drinks, production makes them. You see, that is that. Surveys show customers want. That is, let's say, sugar-free drinks, and then production is going to make them. That's why we are saying the marketing function identifies customers needs and advises production. And then that is that. Now we come to market environment now. We come to market environment. They're saying consumers interact with suppliers to satisfy their needs. So consumers buy goods that suppliers provide. So that is that. A shopper buys bread from a bakery supplier. That is that. Intermediaries influence suppliers because the more they sell, the more suppliers will have to supply. So meaning to say, the middlemen affect the orders that suppliers must fulfill. For example, Pick n Pay orders more milk, dairy farms produce more. That is that. Competitors interact with consumers to attract them by offering cost savings and better services. So it means that competitors try to win customers by giving better value. By giving better value. For example, ShopRite lower prices to attract customers from Spar. Competitors and regulators interact to investigate monopoly and foreign investment. So, meaning to say, government checks that business don't unfairly dominate. That is that. Regulators put regulations and laws in place to ensure that there is a fair competition and free trade. So laws protect the business and consumer. So it means law prevents fake products from being sold. Many malls and CBPs interact with suppliers to assist them in their projects. So it means that large companies work closely with suppliers for smooth production. For example, Coca-Cola works with bottle manufacturers to maintain supply. Now we come to macro environment. Many businesses start by importing and exporting their goods or services, then expand their businesses by globalization. So globalization allows business to trade worldwide. That is that. Demographics influence the society and communities. So population size, age, gender affect what? Affect demand. Government ensures that poor laws are in place to protect the physical environment. So laws prevent what? Pollution and environmental damage. For example, factories must follow waste disposal regulations. A change in the weather patterns can influence the availability of natural resources and raw materials. So the weather patterns influence natural resources and raw materials. So climate affects the availability of supplies. For example, drought reduces maize harvest, increasing prices. The institutional environment affects the economic environment. Example, if the quality of product of education is poor, people may not have skills to either work for business or start their own a business. So meaning to say, we are saying education affects the economic environment. Skill determine how productive people can be. So for example, low education levels mean fewer skilled workers. So low education levels, it means you're going to find ourselves with low or fewer skilled workers. That is that. So let's move on. So we are on the reasons why competition poses a challenge to a business. Reasons why competition poses challenge to a business. That is that. They're saying competition keeps price down and reduces the business profitability. For example, if KFC lowers prices, Chicken Legend earns less profit. That is that. Competition keeps price down and reduces profitability. So if KFC decided to lower the prices, it means Chicken Legend is going to earn less profit. That's what it means. It focuses, it forces business to find new ways to produce an existing products or develop new products or services. So, for example, clothing store uses machines to make faster and cheaper clothes. A business may close down if it is unable to compete with other business. So, for example, a small taxi operator closes because Uber takes customers. So that is that. Competition reduces the business market share and its target market. So, for example, we can say if Vodacom loses users to MTN, its market drops. its market drops. So now we come to interrelationship between the micro and market environment. They are saying the business environments are related to each other as they cannot operate in isolation. So, for example, a bakery needs customers. That is market now. A bakery needs customers that to survive. That is that. The business does not have a purpose without the market environment. Meaning, business has no purpose without the market. Example, without buyers, a shop cannot stay open. That is that. So let us move on to business and consumers. Business and consumers. Consumers are people who are willing and able to pay for the business products and services. For example, a customer buys a t-shirt for 150. 450. He is willing to buy that t-shirt. He is able to pay for that t-shirt. The business needs to market and advertise its goods and services to ensure there is a demand for them. For example, a new cafe advertised on Facebook to attract what? Customers. The business needs to carry out market research to determine the appropriate type of goods and services and the best price for them. Business must do market research, in short. For example, survey shows teens prefer spicy chips. Business adds spicy chips. That is that. The public relation department should ensure that the business has a good image and that its customers remain loyal. So, for example, a company sponsors a school event to build trust. That's a good image that they are building. So now let us move on to business and suppliers. Business and suppliers. Business and supplier. Yes, and suppliers provide raw materials, inputs, equipment, and business services that a business needs to produce its products. Meaning, for example, a bakery needs flour, they need flour and ovens from suppliers. So that is that. The business needs to ensure that it is using best supplier to get best quality for the price. So meaning business must choose the best supplier. Here we are saying business must choose what? Best supplier. So, for example, a shop chooses the supplier with the best quality, A plus. That is that. Business need to communicate with suppliers about the latest developments in the technology and products. So business communicates with suppliers about new technology. For example, a printer company informs business about new faster printer. So that is that. They need to ensure that the suppliers have enough stock to meet consumers' demand. So suppliers must meet the what? The demand. For example, a clothing shop needs enough stock before Christmas season so that they can meet the demand. Business need to pay their suppliers as they are also customers. So a restaurant pays its vegetable supplier monthly. That is that. So now let us go to businesses and intermediaries. Business and intermediaries. We are on business and intermediaries. So is it intermediaries help business to distribute and sell goods to customers? So intermediaries help distribute goods to customers. For example, a courier guy delivers online orders to buyers. Business need to maintain good relationship with intermediaries. So business must maintain a healthy relationship with intermediaries. For example, a store partner the store partners well with DHL to avoid what? Delays. Business sells its goods and services to intermediaries. For example, a factory sells chips to wholesalers who sell to retailers. Intermediaries help the business to access consumers and they influence its sales. So intermediaries help business reach customers. For example, a bottled water is delivered to shops by a distributor. Business needs to find the best transport and communication companies at the best price to transport and to market their product. So here we're saying business must find transport at the best price. For example, a business chooses the cheapest delivery truck services. Intermediaries need to be reliable and responsible as they affect quality, service, and prices of the goods and services. So you are talking about the intermediaries must be reliable. For example, late deliveries from a distributor cause lost sales. They cause loss of sales. So let us move on to business and competitors. Business and competitors. So they say competitors are businesses that produce the same product or service for the same target market. So for example, Adidas and Nike both sell shoes. They both what? Sell shoes. The business needs to be aware of its competitors' products and services. So business must know competitors' products and prices. Checkers checks Pick and Pay prices to compete. Business must ensure that they keep abreast of latest trends. So business must keep up with latest trends. For example, clothing store follow TikTok fashion trends. Business influence the price and quality of the products. So we're saying business competitors influence the price and the quality of the product of the product. So we are saying competitors influence price and quality. So a Samsung improves camera quality because Apple did. You see, business are in constant competition, need to keep up to date with advertising and marketing trends. So we know very well that the competition is constant. So for example, fast food chains always update menus to attract customers. Entrepreneurs need to be creative in turning the challenges of the competitors into positive changes of their companies. So many entrepreneurs must be creative. For example, a small bakery offers online orders to beat what? Competition. So now we are on the relationship between micro market and macro environments. There's a change in the micro environment because a change in the micro environment, which in turn create a change in the market environment. For example, an increase in the rate of interest, which is macro, may lead to an increase in the production costs, which is micro, and which may reduce consumer spending. Here now we are talking about the market. See, this is the relationship that you're talking about of this three. A change in the economic environment may lead to change in the technological environment and the way in which people spend their money. That is a change in economic environment may as well lead to change in technological environment. Here we're still talking about macro environment and the way in which people spend their money market. The legal, political, and institutional environment has a large impact on other business environments. Example, politics and laws affect the economic environment. The business has full control over all elements, features of the micro environment. We know that they have full control. The business has a little control over the market environment, but can influence it. We know they have what? They have a limited control, but they can drive or almost to influence. The business has no control over the macro environment, but must develop strategies to adapt the challenges that are posed. So this is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much for your time. This is the end of chapter 4, as we are going to move next to the next chapter, chapter 5, which is business sectors, and that is the last chapter for term 1, business studies grade 10. Thank you very much for your time. Please share with those who are concerned. Please don't forget to hit the subscription button. I thank you.